Welcome back to the Bleav in Badger Football podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network, presented by betonline.ag. Once again, I'm your host, Matt Perkins, joined as always by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Matty, great to see you as always.
It's always a pleasure.
And today we have the honor of being joined by another Badgers wide receiver. I didn't know this was turning into the wide receiver pod, but what is this, like the fourth wide receiver we've had? I don't even know, man. A lot of pass catchers coming on this show lately, but I love it. I love it. We've got Jonathan Orr in the house. Jonathan, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Man, thank you guys so much for having me. Huge fan of the show, and glad I get to be a part of it today.
J.O., man, I miss you.
Man, I miss you too, man. I miss you, man. It's been a couple years. I want to say maybe homecoming before COVID was the last time I saw you, man.
It's been a couple years. Where are you now?
Detroit area, so back home.
Back home?
Yeah,
because you're from Detroit.
Yep, from Detroit, and we were living in Nashville for about 7 years, and we looked up. We had 3 kids and no family. It was like, man, we got to get closer to family, because my wife is from Chicago, so now we're, my family's here. Her family's 4 hours away as opposed to 11. So it was a good move. Good move.
Dude, it's a good move. That's why I moved to the burbs also. You like need extra hands all day. Yeah. That's all I need is I need a half an hour break. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Wait, so
where are you living, Matt? Matt, where are you at now?
Oh, I am in Tarrytown, New York. So I'm in the burbs.
Gotcha.
My family's all around. Okay. It's Westchester County, so we're all around. Okay. And Matty Perkins is actually in Nashville.
I am.
Really?
So, yep.
Man, I didn't realize that. What part of Nashville are you in?
Bellevue.
Yeah. That's east. East, right?
No, Southwest.
Southwest? Okay.
Yep. Okay. Southwest. Just out past Belmead. West of like Brentwood.
Got you. Okay, we'll have to talk some Nashville today too. Then
yes, we will.
Yeah. Wait, so J.O., I really want to talk about what you're doing today, because I actually think it's so important, and the transition from like any sport to like life is extremely tough. I don't think I did a good job with it. So, but I want to go back to like young J.O., little young J.O. You lived in Detroit. You were born in 83, but I'm older than you, which is so funny because I was born in 82 in December. It doesn't matter. And like what got you into football? Like what was J.O. like, little elementary J.O. like?
Man, so I grew up, I always tell people we grew up in a rough part of Detroit and Northwest side, and we were kind of surrounded by a lot of craziness, like violence and drugs and drug house like next door and like that type of thing. But my parents, especially my father, man, they were very intentional about making sure that my brothers and I were involved in something outside of our neighborhood, just all the time. And so my dad, he threw us in just about every sport you can think of. And then when I was about 8, he took me to a Detroit Lions game. My brothers and I saw this guy named Barry Sanders play for the first time. And I'm like, this is what I want to do with my life. And so we asked our dad to sign us up and for our local team, and he did, and the West Side Broncos. And about the age of, they're like 8 or 9, I realized like, man, this is what I want to do. I want to go to the NFL. I want to have a long career. And I always played receiver. I was always tall and thin, so they put me at receiver right away. And then I learned about this guy named Jerry Rice and tried to model my little league football days in high school after him. So yeah, man, about the age of 8 or 9, I was sort of on this path, had this tunnel vision of not only going to the NFL, but making a long career out of it.
And you knew you wanted to be a wide receiver.
It was just something about, I like running back more when I was like young.
Well, who throws the ball when you're 8 or 9?
Right.
You can't even hold the ball.
Right. Right. And then I thought I was going to be a quarterback like in middle school years. But just when it came to organized football, I was just always at receiver, man, and just developed a love for it. It was something about just the art of running around, catching the ball, and all of that I just fell in love with.
So we had Lee Evans on a couple weeks ago, and he and Chris Chambers were high school teammates. And their high school ran a wing tee, and that just seems like such a waste of talent. What was your high school offense? Were you getting the ball a lot in high school, or like?
Bro, so this is the crazy thing, right? So I went to Henry Ford High School, and we had like our head coach, who was also the offensive coordinator. He's known as like a legend in Michigan as one of the greatest offensive minds in high school football. So we used to open it up, man. We had my sophomore year, we had the #1 receiver in the state, right? My junior year, we had the #1 quarterback in the state and the #1 tight end in the country. And so we used to throw it. So just by sort of default, like I had exposure, and all of us did, because it was always a new university recruiting at our school. And so we used to spread it out, man, and we had good running backs too. So we had to keep defenses honest, and so yeah.
Wait, that's amazing. Because I mean, who wastes Lee Evans' talent in high school running the wing tee? But your coach had the mindset to say, "Hey, we're gonna throw it. We got the guys. We're gonna do it." Yep. So when you're on that team, like when you're watching these guys as a sophomore, were you playing as a sophomore?
So I did, man. I was one of only like I think it was 3 of us that were sophomores on varsity, and so I didn't play a whole lot. I would kind of we were blowing teams out, and I would kind of get the scrap minutes at the end. I remember towards the end of the season, sophomore year, I got a touchdown, man, and that's kind of when the light came on. Like, hold on, man, I might be able to do something with this. Here in high school, because you never really know. At least I didn't growing up. Like, little league, everybody's, you have some good days, bad days, but yeah, scoring that touchdown, that's when the light came on, and I kind of belong here at the high school level. So.
Wait, that's great. So as a sophomore, so then what was the transition from your sophomore year to junior year? Now are you starter? You guys are working in the off season. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, man. So we had the #1 quarterback in the state, #1 tight end in the country, and so they were the show, right? And so but all of our receivers, the previous year, we had 13 guys get offers and go to college, right? And of those, 3 of those were receivers. So the receiver job was wide open. So just competed in the off season, ended up earning it, one of the starting receiver positions right before camp. And we were the season opener, we were going against our rival. And again, at this point, I don't, I think I can do something with this. I think I have some level of talent. But I ended up having a great first game, and I was working at Target at the time, right? I was splitting my time between like Target. I would miss practice sometime because I would have to go to Target, and my checks was like $80. And then after that first game junior year, I scored a couple touchdowns, some bombs, and I had to let Target go. Like, let me focus on this. Let me focus on football a little bit, see where this takes me. So, yeah.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, you had to let Target go. I
had to let it go.
Oh man! So junior year was really your breakout year.
Yeah, it was a breakout year. Yep.
Were you getting a lot of like coaches talking to you, getting a lot of letters, phone calls, stuff like that?
Yeah, the letter started junior year, and then after my junior year season, I got my first offer letter from Ohio State.
Come on.
Yeah, Ohio State. I remember my coach was like, "I have something for you," and this is before social media, right? This is before
cell phones, pretty much.
Yeah, right, and all of that, and I'm like, what do you have for me? And I was, getting regular recruitment letters. He was like, Ohio State, and I opened it up, and he was like, "Man, they offered you a scholarship," and I just remember I wasn't even expecting it, right? Like, again, all this is new, so I didn't know how that would unfold, and I was hoping I, would eventually get an offer, and so that definitely gave me a jolt of confidence, and then got some more offers throughout junior year and senior year. So.
Wait, dude, Ohio State was your first letter that said like, "We want you to play here on a full ride"?
Yes, man. John. So my dad.
That's a lot better than the letters I got.
Man, my dad is somewhere around here. Yeah, my dad saved all that stuff. So my parents,
that's cool.
The last couple of years, they've been making us get all our stuff out of their home, and so yeah, I actually found a book where my dad saved all of my offer letters, and so yeah, Ohio State was the first one, spring of junior year. Yeah,
dude, that could be. I mean, what's better than that? Like, what's
But you know what's crazy? So growing up in Michigan, like you would think like, yeah, that's cool, but I hated Ohio State, right? Like I grew up a Michigan fan. And so it was cool to get an offer, but I'm like, there's no way. Like it wasn't even, I never even considered it, right? Like,
is that the mindset of like people who grow up in Michigan?
Especially back then. I think nowadays, kids are a little more open and understand the business aspect of it too. But for me, it was like, there's no way, man. Like, yeah, right.
So as a junior, what was number one? Was Michigan number one?
So I grew up a huge Michigan fan, man. But then they really didn't recruit me.
Really?
Yeah, late, like after senior season, and then they showed a little more interest. It was because I think some other folks fell through and all of that. But honestly, a lot of guys from my high school went to Michigan State and had success. Like when I was at Wisconsin, when we played Michigan State, like we were going against my quarterback from high school, Damon Dodell, number 7, right? And so that's where I wanted to go. But then that's when Nick Saban left. You remember he used to be at Michigan State? He left, and then the program was kind of in shambles for a little bit. And then
the John L. Smith era.
Yeah, man. And even before John L. Smith, it was one of the assistant coaches took over for a little over a year, and it was just kind of up in the air. But after junior year, I sort of ranked my schools in order from 1 to 5. Wisconsin was number 1 on my list, and so I have set my visits up in order of the schools that that I was interested in, and so Wisconsin was number 1, man.
So when you went on your official, who hosted you?
Lee Evans. Lee Evans, man. Lee.
I mean, if you say no to Lee, you cannot be good at football after that.
Man, yeah. And it's crazy to think, man, that was 20 years ago. Like,
yeah.
Actually, no, because that was 2000.
Like, 21 years ago. 21 years ago.
21 years ago. Like, I still remember it vividly. I remember coming to, they pick you up from the airport, whatever. You meet, I think over at the facility or whatever, and there's little snacks and stuff. And we weren't even, my dad still tells the story. We weren't even there 30 minutes. And so, we do the meet and greet with the coaches. We get on the elevator, it's just my dad and I. He's going to take us to the hotel. And this is he and I say, Dad, I'm ready to commit. This is it. He said, son, we haven't even been here an hour. Like, you haven't even seen anything. I'm like, oh, Dad, this is it, man. But I just knew, man, right away.
But what was it about it? Like, what was about Wisconsin? First off, how did Wisconsin? So Ohio State's there, Michigan's not there. You want Michigan State? How does Wisconsin kind of file into this?
Yes, man. So early junior year, I this is the first time I met Coach Mason. I'm on the stairs. It's like the middle of the school day. I'm going from the 3rd floor down to the 1st floor. And then somebody says, you Jonathan Orr. And then I'm like, yeah. And he has on his Wisconsin shirt with the vest. And he introduces himself like, I'm Coach Henry Mason, man. And, we like what you've been doing, blah, blah, blah. And that was our first encounter. And then he just stayed in contact ever since then, showed a genuine interest. And the thing that really stood out to especially my parents, I didn't know this at the time, but my parents really helped me through this process, is that Wisconsin was like brutally honest. During the recruiting process, a lot of times folks tell you what you want to hear. You're going to start right away. And Mason was he kept it like 100 through that whole process. He told my dad, like, he probably not going to play unless we absolutely something happens and we need him. He'll probably redshirt. But I would have a plan for him, want to develop him physically. And my dad appreciated that it wasn't just a lot of smoke he was blowing. And so I think the quality of people, the integrity, it was a track record at that point of winning. It was an opportunity, even though I wouldn't play early, like freshman year, it was an opportunity to still play early. It's a great university, right? One of the best universities in the country. And so all of that really played a role in that decision. And then being able to play for the coach that recruited me, right? Like, as opposed to coming and it's because sometimes, those situations that, the coach who was your position coach didn't recruit you, they might not really want you, right? And so all of that sort of played a role.
So that's, first off, Coach Mason has come up in a lot of our conversations, also with wide receivers, but Travis Beckham brought him up as well. I feel like that guy could recruit anybody from anywhere. Like, he was just a special there's something about like him versus other coaches, like that. I feel like if you had that first initial conversation, like right away, you're like, I think I want to be around that guy more.
Yeah. And again, I think like people recognize and understand like realness and authenticity, right? So again, I mean, Mason just told it like it was, right? Like and that's even today, that's such a breath of fresh air when you meet somebody like that. It's rare. And so but he still had tact, and he was, a funny guy and had a sense of humor and could talk real life with you. And so just a combination of just he was a great coach, right? As far as teaching the X's and O's, but just the man that Mason is. And like it's uncommon, man, especially in that world.
I totally agree. I've said this 100 times. Like that guy was a great coach for me, and I really didn't. He never coached me. Like it's just was the way he went about business was not the normal like curse someone out or yell and scream. It was more of like a funny, humorous way that he'd be like, "Yo, Bern, this isn't going to work here," and like you kind of knew right off that was like good enough. Like you didn't need more, and it was funny. Like you'd laugh at it.
Yeah, hey, I remember Mason used to say at meetings, like he would have sometimes he would cut you out, right? But he would have that funny way. I remember one time he would say, I think it was Darren Charles. He did something, dropped the ball in the game or something. We're watching film, and he's like, "Hey, Darren, Darren, what's the big employer in your hometown there?" And I forgot what he said. Or no, he said, "What's the big gas stations?" He's like PDQ or something like that. He was like, "Man, you might want to see if they're hiring, man, because because I don't know if you're gonna make it here, Darren." But and we all got that from Mason. But just stuff like that, man, where you can't help with it.
So you're on the elevator. You're like, "Yo, Dad, I'm committing today." Mm-hmm. What does he say? My dad said, "Don't sign anything at all until we have a conversation." So I'm happy you're there in the elevator with your dad. So what does your dad say to you?
He said that. He was like, "Son, you haven't even been here an hour, man. Like what are you like no, just let's see how the weekend goes, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "All right." And so it was just a great time, man. Just Lee had just finished his sophomore year, or I guess it was still the season was going on because they went to the Sun Bowl, I think, that year.
Right.
And so it was in between, just that bowl prep time, and I mean, Lee always been a man, right? So I'm hanging out with this guy, and we're going to parties, and he sneaks me into the KK, and so I'm like, "Man, come on, I've seen enough." Like, yeah. So, and then the weekend comes to an end, and then you always end it at Coach Alvarez's house Sunday morning for breakfast, and they have the omelet station and whatever you want to eat, man. You know how they do it, right? And then they say, "Coach Alvarez would like to meet with you. Just you. The parents don't come."
Yep.
And you go in Coach Alvarez's home office, and he's sitting there behind his desk, and it's just trophies and Big Ten championship trophies and Rose Bowl trophies. And he's sitting there. He might even had his rings on, right? And he's sitting there with rings, and he's like, "How'd the weekend go?" He's like, it was good, and blah blah blah. He was like, "We want you to be a Badger, and so are you coming?" Something like that. And my dad told me the same thing. He was like, "Man, don't you go in there, don't make any commitments." I was like, "Man, I want to, but I just need to." Yeah. And so and then we went home, and by the time we got off the plane, my dad and I talked. By the time we got off the plane, we had made a decision that this is where I was going to go, man, and called Mason and let him know, and that same day. So.
No, that's smart, because you also want to make sure your spot's there.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this. Like they offer a lot of people, and you have to like basically say yes right away or within a quick amount of time.
Yeah.
They'll hold it for a certain amount of time. Wait, that's so great, because it's funny because my dad was like you. My dad he's like, "Oh, you should go to school here." I'm like, "I don't know, Dad. Wisconsin's kind of far away. I didn't grow up in the Midwest."
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, this is the place for you." And I'm like, "All right." So I called, we got home like a day later. I called Brian White, and I was like, "Hey, Coach, I'm in. Like, I'm coming." And he's like, "Awesome." I was like, "This is so cool." So when I sat with Alvy, I was already going to school there. So our conversation was like 10 minutes long, it was 5 minutes. He's like, hey, did these guys take care of you? I'm like, yeah, man, I've had a really good time. But let me tell you, it's been a blast. And he's like, all right, cool. We'll see you in July or whenever, June, July, whenever. We showed up. Did you come early?
Sorry, I got frozen for a second.
No, yeah, it's all right. You got frozen smiling, so it was like perfect. Did you show up in July or August before our first year? Because I remember it at the region.
I showed up in June. No, I got out of school in June. I showed up at the beginning of July. I wanted to go like as soon as I got out of school. You know, my dad's like, let's type a few loose ends here and all of that, and ended up showing up in July.
So, sorry, go, keep going. Because I remember July and August. In my mind, it was like a blast hanging out with like high school kids. Like it was just like you, me, and pretty much half of the guys who we were going to play with.
Yep.
But then the other half was like going to the weight room and the facilities and grinding and having no idea what's going on. Like it was,
that is the perfect description, right? Because, bro, at my school in Detroit, we had no conditioning program, right? Like we had a few weights in a little closet, and we would run. We had no track. We would literally run around the school, right, for like the second floor of the school. And so, so to go from that to JD, right? I remember our first. The first day I showed up, it happened to be on a day where we had to do stadium.
On a Tuesday. That's the day I showed up to. The worst day of my life.
Matt, we had to do stadiums, right? I had no idea what I was in for. And then I asked Bot, right, our strength and conditioning assistant, strength and conditioning coach. And I'm like, man, like, what do I do? He's like, we're going to do this thing called a dynamic lap, blah, blah, blah. He was like, just keep up. He said, just keep up with Lee. That's what he told me.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's very nice of him. Just keep up with Lee.
By the time we finished the dynamic lap, man, I felt like I had played a whole game. And then I almost died. Like, I don't know if this is for me.
Matt Perkins, the dynamic lap was you ran around the whole field, and every 10 yards you changed to do something else. So it was like high knees for 10 yards, butt kicks for 10 yards, and it kept going. Then you were doing lunges, you were doing backwards lunges, you were doing like inchworms. You were doing you turn around, you'd run backwards and like kick your legs out. It was the hardest one lap. They sent all this stuff pre going to school for you to work out in the winter and they sent me a video, Jay. I'm pretty sure you probably got the video and like had all the, but so like when I would read the card, I thought you'd take a break in between all these different things. The lap was one lap. By the time every dynamic lap I have ever did, I was dying at the end of it. It was not so dynamic.
And then Matt, and then at the end of that, then you have to go run stadiums, right?
You had to jog up first.
Had to jog up all the way up to the upper deck. It was crazy.
It was terrible.
It was.
I remember when I got the off-season workouts from the track program, because I went to UW to do track my freshman year, and when I got the off-season track workouts, I was like, oh boy, I'm not, because I came from a high school where we didn't have a weight room, you know, like we had a bench and a squat rack,
right.
And like we had like this weird machine where like you would start in like a 2-point stance and like fire out, and there were some like weights on the side of it, and like that's it. That was the three things we had in our weight room in my high school, which was like it was in the basement. There was no circulation. It was like disgusting and musty, and yeah, I was not ready for that.
But so it's interesting because my coach was very strict about working out, and he was in there every day, and we were doing hang cleans and squatting. We were doing everything. So when I got to Wisconsin, I was like, oh, I've done this. I showed up 15 minutes late once, and he called my dad. So, you know, like at that point I was like, man, I got to be here at 3:15 because school ended at 3, like no joke. Yeah. So when I got to Wisconsin, it was an easier transition, but watching dudes like Antosh, never lifted a weight in his life. Like the dude couldn't even do hang clean for a second, and he was an athlete. Yeah. So it was crazy. Yeah. Crazy. But I'll tell you, J.O., it's funny you bring that memory back because I never want to remember it. But I legitimately came with 2 duffel bags because that's all I had was clothing, dropped them on the floor. Everyone's like, hey, we got to go to the stadium. go to the state. I'm in like jeans and a t-shirt. They give you a pair of shorts. Actually, they couldn't give you anything. So that's also how you knew you were a complete noob, was that you wore your own. I wore my Edgemont High School gear because they couldn't give you stuff yet. And I was running. We did a workout. We did legs. I was dying at that. I'm like, okay, we're done. And then they're like, no, we got to go up to the the stadiums and do that. JD's like, run with the linemen. And I was running behind the linemen. I was dying. I was like, man, this is going to be the worst. So the transition was really actually extremely tough in that summer. But once you figure it out, it kind of it catches up. But that was, I don't know. I think a lot of kids now do, and I don't know if you have any experience in this. Do you do high school to college transitions?
Yep. Yeah, we do. Yep. And then just the field is called athlete development, right? So developing the whole person. And so we do a lot of athlete development work in the high school space too. Just general. I
don't want to jump into that yet, but I think I just needed to know, because a lot of kids, I want to ask you this. A lot of kids are going to school before their senior year ends.
Yeah.
That is you're talking about, like, look at Braylon Allen, 17. How on earth do you, like, I was not ready. If I did that I would have been a nightmare.
I'm still not ready.
So yeah, man, I don't, it's a different kid these days, man. Yeah, I definitely, I wasn't ready either, Matt, to your point. Like, I wasn't ready either for that jump, but I don't know how kids are doing that. It's
okay, common. So we'll get back to that, because that's what you are focusing on now, the transitions, which I legitimately tell everyone this. I could have used JO when I was 23 years old and like sitting around thinking of what my life will be. While I was probably partying too much, which is like what you shouldn't be doing. Right. So, but let's go back. So we're on the scout team, right? You were on the scout team.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So we had that, and then spring ball comes about. What changes for you to kind of like move your way up the depth chart?
Yeah, man. So even before spring ball, like had a good, like when I showed up to campus, man, I was the same height I am now, 6'3"-ish, 164 pounds.
Oh, I know. I remember.
Man. And so I remember I had to lift, they put 135 on the bench. That's the bar, and then 245-pound plates. And it almost killed me, man. So for that summer, I was just lifting the bar. And so I took winter conditioning like serious as I knew that took it. And that gave me confidence, right? I had put on a few pounds. By the time spring ball came, I was probably around 180. And had a little muscle and just physically, when you feel good, that does something to the way you perform. At least for me, it did. And so going into spring, I remember like it was going to be opportunities, and Mason told us, man, it was myself, Darren Charles, who was a true freshman. It was we had a guy named DeAndre Kemp from California. You remember him?
Yep. Another
receiver, and Dantes. That's before Dantes that moved to defense. So he was like, man, we're going to need some of you guys to step up. And so, we all were just competing. And the hardest thing was for me was like learning the playbook. Because literally in high school, he said, literally we would go in the huddle and they would say up top to or. That was the play. And everybody knew. So I had no idea what else was going on. And Mason used to always say that was one of my weaknesses, that I played in a tunnel, right? I was only focused on what I had to do because that was all I knew. And so learning the playbook and learning different receiver positions, that was so hard. I remember getting cussed out during spring ball, like frequently, and Coach White cussing me out, and Mason, and it was tough. But by the end of spring, I felt like I had finally got a good grasp, at least on the basics and certain concepts and things like that. And so by the spring game, had a decent spring game, and then Lee got hurt in the spring game. And then that's when, we knew not only would it be an opportunity for some young guys to step up, but we knew young guys would have to step up. And so, and then we go into summer. Summer went well, and then fall camp, man, going into it again, I felt good and had a good fall camp, and ended up, earning that starting position.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the year that Lee got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dude, the playbook is hard, man. The
Yeah.
playbook is hard. Even if it's like the simple, like just power
Yeah.
run, like you just got to
Yeah.
block. It's just really that took me a long time too, is just to figure out like what do you do on each play? Like
Yeah.
what does this words mean to everybody? Like I don't even know.
Yeah.
So, but once you
It's
do it, I remember once you got it, dude, you were on fire.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Took a while to get it, but yeah. But what you want to, and when you think about it, Matt, that kept a lot of guys off the field, right? Like it was guys extremely talented, but could never grasp that playbook, and Wisconsin, we're known for a few things: toughness, right, and 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 playing intelligent, like not making mistakes, and so. So yeah, if you couldn't figure out the playbook, if you didn't know what you were doing, then you probably weren't going to play a whole lot.
So then second year, which is our redshirt freshman year, you're a
Yep.
starter.
Mm-hmm.
How awesome is that? But like, what's that like? I just remember it kind of felt normal because we'd run out there on game days and just kind of stand on the sidelines. But you got that feel like, like it wasn't like Brett Bell and like Sparky and like these dudes who are like going out and playing full games.
You're right, right.
Like DC was playing. I'm like, man, that's a whole different mental. Like I don't have to think here. I just have to eat a sandwich after the game, and like that's it.
Right.
What was your experience starting that year, and what were some obstacles and some huge highlights for you?
Man, I remember our first game against Fresno State. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Under the lights, and again, you don't know what to expect. It's one thing, like you said, the red shirt and be on the sideline, but I remember Calvin Barrett, maybe like at the hotel, we were talking, and he's like, "You ready for tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He was like, "Hey man, I cried during my first game on the ride from the hotel to the stadium. He's like, I cried last year, man." I'm like, "You cried? Why are you telling me this now?" He's like, "Yeah, man." He was like, "I couldn't help it, man. I was just nerves and such and such. And you look outside, you see the sea of red, and then now that's on my mind. Like, man, you cried. Am I gonna cry?" and so we get there, man. We're in the it was a close game. I hadn't had a ball thrown to me all game, but which was fine by me. I didn't know I was ready. And just blocking, it was just electric atmosphere. It was night game and all this. And then you remember in the fourth quarter, it was close. I think we were actually down. And they called all seams. And again, I just ran up the seam, and Brooks hit me on maybe about a 15-yard. We got the first down, and then we went on to score that drive. And I remember Mason after the game, he was like, "Man, you guys are too young and dumb," something like this, to realize the significance of that moment. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Man, like really, if we don't convert that right first down, and if we don't, because Brandon Williams made a good catch on that play, and it kept the drive alive, and we were able to end up winning that game." But he was like, he was like, "Y'all just was too ignorant to know the pressure that like that situation." And I guess, and that pretty much, like, for that freshman year, kind of summed up the season, man. Like I was just having fun, right? It's like,
Right.
I'm playing college football. We would play a game at 11, right, a.m. Later on that night, I'm seeing myself on ESPN. It's just like, what is better than this, man? But the difficulty, the challenges that year, I remember it was a long season, man. Like just the wear and tear physically. Like I was just exhausted, probably like that eighth, ninth game. And then the Big Ten season too. So it's physical, and receivers at Wisconsin. I mean, we're blocking, right? And so just the wear and tear, and then that affected me just mentally, right? Just I was mentally drained and trying to manage school and all of that. So towards the end of the season, I remember kind of falling off some.
Well, I was gonna say your second game of that season was your big coming out party against UNLV. You scored your first touchdown. You had 150 yards. That was obviously, you're in Las Vegas. We know Barry loved to schedule games at UNLV.
Yeah.
So, which always, what was I always thought was funny as a fan looking at it. But what was it like? Did something like really click after that first game for you? Like, what do you think helped you really sort of like, blossom in that second game? And what was it like to score your first collegiate touchdown?
Man, I remember that so well, man. I again, I think that first game just kind of again gave me some confidence that I belong here. And my favorite route ever since I was a kid has always been the post route. It's just something about just lining a guy up, right? Crowding his space and then giving a little fake outside. And it was nothing like nowadays, guys doing all kind of the be white stuff, right?
Yeah.
Making guys fall on them. I didn't have any of that. I just had a little bit of speed and understood like if I could, get leverage, so on and so forth. And so man, we just kept running that post route, man. And there was no safety over the top. And Brooks, I remember threw it and I remember catching it. And then I remember after I caught it, I'm like, oh man, the touchdown's right here. And then, I didn't realize I was that close. And the guy tackled me into the end zone. And I just remember like, oh my gosh, I just scored a touchdown, man. And if you ever look at that footage, like it's like just an expression of relief. I'm just like, like, because you want to get the first one out the way, and so yeah. And then the lights went out. You remember that?
I was actually hurt. They didn't travel me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I remember watching the game, going,
Yeah.
"What did my TV just turn off?" My parents were there. I hurt my knee in the Fresno State game.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I missed that game. So I was very sad about not going. But dude, that Jo. First off, Matt, Jo will never talk about himself. Like he's not like a screamer or like a rah-rah guy. That's Brandon Williams. Like it's kind of. I think you and Lee were like, thank God this guy's here because I don't have to say anything. Like, I don't remember Lee like really getting mad or doing anything, or you guys just like led by example. So this guy, if you have any highlights you want to talk, you have to ask him specifically. He's not going to tell you anything. I'll tell you everything, but that's it.
Yeah, man. But yeah, great memories, man.
And then we went and won the Alamo Bowl that year.
We did. Yeah,
which was awesome.
I had a horrible game that year. Yeah. That was a horrible bowl game, first bowl game.
Yeah. I missed a bunch of blocks too. Huber was on me.
Yep.
Somebody jumped over my leg and blocked the extra point, and he was livid. Things I'll probably never hear in my life, no matter what I do. And I just remember like we won, and I just felt so good because we won. And Brooks, I was like, Brooks, you got to win to leave, man. Like I'm like, this is the best. I'm just so happy you're happy.
Yeah,
That's all I really remember.
Well, I was happy we won. I don't know if you remember this, man, but I dropped. The game was like close, right? It was on the line. It was fourth quarter, and I dropped a wide open. It would have been a touchdown, and then I got pulled after that, and then I think Darren converted it was like fourth down. We had to go for it, right? The game was on the line, and thank God Darren caught like a 20-yard pass. I forgot exactly. And then, long story short, we ended up winning that game. But I just remember being so relieved that, like, gosh, like it's bad enough I got this drop, and now if this cost us the game, so I was happy, one to get the win, and then also that it didn't end with like me being the reason for this loss. So.
I don't want to throw this out there because but I'm going to. Yeah. Calhoun won us that game. Like, that's a game you look back, he didn't run out of bounds. He ran out of bounds. And if he just fell down, the game's over and we would have lost. Wow. But he was on Colorado and he ran out of bounds, stopped the clock, and we got the ball back to kick to tie it up. So I only really remember the really bad things that happened on the field that I hope nobody remembers. I think that's every one of us, what we did wrong, not what we did right. Yeah. But I remember Coach White we'd watch that film every year, be like, this is what, if you don't know situational football, this is what could happen. And Calhoun ran out of bounds, and then we ended up winning. Yeah. And then we watched it with Calhoun in the room, which I thought was hilarious. And Calhoun's like, Coach, listen, I think about this every day. He's like, I know this was a mistake. He's like, I was a freshman. Like, well, I don't know. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. I'm like, man, I get it. Yeah. So sorry, Matty, get it.
So you go from Brooks Bollinger to Jim Sorgi to John Stocco in your career. Mm-hmm. You seem to have really good chemistry with both Brooks and with John. right? Because you had your best years with those two guys. Was there something about either like what I mean? Because you had some you had some down times during your sophomore year, especially. What do you think contributed to that? Did you have tough time getting on the same page with Jim? Like, what was what do you think accounted for that?
No, honestly, man, it was confidence. After that Alamo, and I didn't realize this till years later, right? Like that drop in that Alamo Bowl really impacted, right? To the point where, like, man, I was playing not to make mistakes like sophomore year, right? And I remember, we had the Alamo Bowl. Spring went well, right? And then we go into fall camp, redshirt sophomore year, and I was a starter, right? It was Lee and I, and again, man, I was. You remember Coach Alvarez used to say, and this is one of the lessons I learned from him. And I had a chance to see him a few weeks ago, man, and just share this with him because I never told him how much this impacted me. But he used to say, "Never let the same team beat you twice." You remember we lost to Michigan State. We shouldn't have lost to them junior year. We were ranked number 5 in the country. They weren't even ranked. They beat us. And then the next week we lost to somebody we weren't supposed to lose to. And I remember him saying, I think we might have lost to like Northwestern Indiana or somebody.
Iowa. At Iowa.
Who had no business beating us. And then Alvarez, he said, Iowa did not beat us today. He said, Michigan State beat us again. Never let the same team beat you twice. But and I take that in life now, right? But I was, again, scared because that was such a huge moment. I had never experienced like a failure like that, right? Sure. Like that drop on the national scene. It's a bowl game. And so that really impacted me. And so I was trying not to make those mistakes again, which we all know, and especially in the game of football, man, you can't play like that, right? And so just my confidence, I was making mistakes, and rightfully, I didn't play as much as I had the opportunity to because of my own mistakes. So that was the biggest thing. But I love playing with Sorge. Even a lot of that success freshman year, a lot of that was Sorge too, because him and Brooks were splitting time. So
listen, Sorge never threw me the ball either. So although I'm not doing anything special out there, but no, dude. So I want to talk more, but do you do some of these things? Like, do you have these conversations with kids now about, hey, what do you think could be this issue?
Well, let's backtrack. Hold on for a second. Let's tell people about what Jonathan's doing now, in case they're not familiar.
So wait, hold on. But we still have the NFL. Okay, so let's fast track because I know we're running out of time. But what you're doing now is so cool. So you're done. You're drafted. You drafted to not the Titans, to the Titans.
Yep.
Okay. What was that like, dude? You're like sitting there draft day, and like how cool is that?
So it was crazy. So I had a pretty decent senior year, and I remember, they had the projections and all of that, and one agent's telling you this, blah blah blah, and so literally, guys, I was hearing everything from undrafted to there was even some. I remember seeing some reports that said late first round, right? I think it was. And so I had no idea what to expect, man. And so, I just had no idea. And so I remember the first day and seeing receivers taken, and I was a bit disappointed because I thought that, maybe I should have went in front of some of those guys. And then it comes, so man, I just hope I get an opportunity. And then second day, Titans call and say, we got a pick coming up, and we're thinking about getting you. How would you like to be a Titan? Like, of course. And then I ended up being drafted, right? And so definitely something, man, I'll never forget that experience. So yeah, it was unreal. And then having my family there. And then all of a sudden you go from this moment, right? This cool moment. And then it's like, all right, now, especially being a late draft pick or a free agent, now you gotta, all right, man, it's time to grind some more so I can try to, make the team. And in a couple of days you're there, and now it's rookie mini camp and all of that. So it was a cool experience.
Okay, so then let's get into it, because then you have you had your transition into the NFL. You were on the Titans, and then you're on the Raiders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, practice squad.
Right, so you have all that experience, and then how? Okay, so then how do you think of what you're doing today, and then how and what are you doing today for people who don't know, and then how did you build it?
Yeah, man. So I'm the founder and executive director of a nonprofit 501c3 called Athlete Transition Services. And so, I simply put, we exist to help athletes prepare for and to manage the transition into life after sports. And so we do it through educational workshops and seminars, from transition management stuff, leadership development, financial literacy, career readiness, and we also provide life coaching and mental health services for athletes. And then we just started in the last year and a half provide professional development for coaches. The thought behind that is we can better equip coaches to see athletes as whole people, right? And to better equip them to service the whole person, to coach the whole person, then better off athletes to be. And so, but so we'll be 8 years old in January. But the whole reason I even started this is because a few days after I got drafted, I got a call from a girl named Tamara Allison. We're still friends to this day. We grew up together. She said, "Jonathan, guess what I found?" I said, "I don't know, Tamara. What did you find?" She said, "I found a picture that you gave me when we were in the 4th grade." I said, "Okay, you called to tell me that?" She's like, "Yeah, guess what it says on the back?" I says, "What does it say, Tammy?" She said, "You wrote, 'Look for me in the NFL by 2005.'" Now, it was 2006, so I didn't know about Redshirt in the 4th grade, right? But I didn't even remember writing that or giving her that picture, but it reinforced how serious I was on this goal, right? And so after only 2 years in the NFL, remember, I was supposed to have a 20-year career like Jerry Rice. So after a couple years, all of a sudden, this thing that was such a huge part of my life, this thing that I couldn't even remember my life without, this game of football, was now over in a blink of an eye. And for me, the next couple years after that was by far the hardest 2 years of my life. Nobody prepares you. Every athlete knows that one day that their playing days will come to an end, right? Like, every athlete knows that. You know you're not going to do it forever, but you don't know. No one can really prepare you for it. So it's a whole new space that you're in. It's really like breaking up, right? Like breaking up with everybody had a breakup before. It's like breaking up on a whole different level.
But it's getting dumped after pouring your heart and soul into something for 10, 20, 25 years.
Well, and,
So
and the saying goes that, it's very, very few people who get to choose when to leave the game on their terms. The game you sort of boots you out, right? Like,
and both of you guys are absolutely right. The thing is, and it's all kind of research being done about this particular topic now. And but the thing is, even for those athletes, men and women who leave on their own terms, it's still a level of difficulty that they face, right? That a lot of people, and we all hear about the financial, everybody saw ESPN's broke, so we are aware of that with professional athletes, but the identity piece is so huge, right? Having that lost sense of identity from being a basketball, football player, runner, whatever the case is, now all of a sudden you're not that anymore. And then, again, you've had this tunnel vision. You've been focusing on this one aspect of your life for so long. Even if you have a degree, okay, I've never really fully thought about how I'm going to transition into another career. And so all of that causes trouble. Yeah.
And you're working with your brother, right?
Yeah, man, my brother.
Because he played at Michigan State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. He ran track and played football at Michigan State. He was the first. So the first year in 2014, I just had one program I was doing. It was just me, and then second year added my brother, and now we're up to about 15, 16 partners now, and a couple companies we partner with and organizations, and so it's been a grind, but it's rewarding. So,
dude, that's awesome. So what do you build the curriculum?
Yeah, so the transition stuff. So everybody that most of the folks that we contract with and folks that are on the team, they're all like subject matter experts, right? So I'm not a financial advisor, but we contract with financial advisors to help build out that curriculum. Same thing with mental health. So the area I focus on is transition management. That's the whole reason I started this. Mm-hmm. I've been able to partner with William James College, small college out of Boston, and conduct some research. And so that's sort of my area that I built the curriculum in, the transition stuff specifically.
What do you think is like the most, what's the hardest part, do you think, of, well, what was the hardest part for you, leave, like, being done with football, right? Like, it's very quick too. It's not like
Yeah,
it's not like it takes a few couple weeks. It's like one meeting. I mean, for me,
yeah,
I was cut by the Lions in like 10 seconds.
yeah.
Like, that's
So
how quick. You talk about a snap of the finger. So like,
yeah.
what was your transition
So
like
so
afterwards?
so it's three things, man, that I call them the common challenges, right, of athletes in transition. So this was the case for me and most athletes. And then there's a lot of other struggles and challenges that can stem from these, right? So the first one is what I like to call transition ignorance. And so for years, I used to use the word change and transition interchangeably, right? Change and transition, but they're different. So change is external. It's the stuff that happens to you, right? It's something different in your external situation. So with an athlete, all of a sudden, we were released by our teams. It's over. It happens fast. We no longer have to go to practice. We no longer have to deal with team meetings. We no longer have to work out a certain way. We no longer have to, all the external stuff. And that's what athletes are aware of will happen. But so that's the change. The transition, on the other hand, always accompanies a change. And this is the internal stuff that athletes have to deal with, right? Transition is a process. It's the internal stuff. So this is the psychological stuff, the mental stuff, the emotional stuff that comes along with that change that you're dealing with. So complete ignorance about that transition part is the first thing that catches athletes off guard, right? Like nobody tells you that you'll be going through anxiety, right? That you'll have a level of depression because you're disconnected from your sport now. So that's number one. Number two is identity, which I mentioned earlier. So again, this lost sense of identity. I'm no longer a football player, a swimmer, whatever the case is.
Mhm.
For so long, this has become what I call our core identity, which is the primary way we identify ourselves. The issue with that is it's temporary, right? And our core identity, a lot of times, this is what we attach our self-confidence, self-value, our purpose, our sense of self-worth. We attach it to that core identity. And so when it's stripped away from us, then what happens to that, our confidence, our self-esteem, right? It diminishes. And so that's number two. And then the third one is career, uh, career challenges. And from that is most of the time it's pertaining to a lack of direction, right? Trying to figure out which way to go now. I have all these options. Do I continue to pursue this professional career? Do I get into coaching? Do I go to grad? Like, what do I do? Or a lack of career fulfillment. So you go from this high of playing in front of 70, how many people did we play in front of, right?
80, 100, right.
70,000. And now all of a sudden you're sitting behind a cubicle. And it's research being done on this now, right? Like the dopamine levels that change when an athlete makes that transition. And so it's a lot of athletes aren't fulfilled in careers. And so now there's nothing wrong with working behind a cubicle if that's the thing that's going to fulfill you. So it's about finding out what fulfills you. And that's what we help athletes figure out, right? Like what else they're good at, what else they're passionate about, what else will bring them fulfillment.
So two things. You go into universities, you have these seminars or these conferences with different athletes.
Yeah.
What's the, like, are there any aha moments? Or are kids in there like, oh my God, I need to start planning for something? Or like, what happens during that time?
Yes, man. So I was just at the University of Houston this past week, and stuff like this. This is the most rewarding part, right? Like a kid came up to me. He's a student athlete. I think he's a junior, and he's like, "Man, I never thought about this, man." He was like, "My dad was a professional baseball player." He was like, and his dad finished playing while he was, old enough to remember the kid.
Mhm.
He's like, everything that you guys talked about tonight, my dad went through that. I remember my dad like struggling, man, being depressed, and it's because like of he again he didn't take the time. And a lot of times we just don't know, right? To think about these things prior to leaving. He was like, man, so now I'm going to make sure that I take the time for self-discovery, right? And I always tell athletes to have a parallel plan, not a plan B. Because I used to hate when people talk to me about a plan B, right? But a parallel plan. While you're pursuing these athletic goals and while you have these athletic aspirations in this lane and another lane, make sure that you're working on something. It doesn't have to be the same amount of time, energy, and effort that you put in this athletic goal. But if it's 10% of your time in your off season, work on something. So that when this athletic lane comes to an end, and it could be after college, it could be after a 15-year pro career, it's going to end. But when it does end, you can just shift lanes. You don't have to start from scratch and try to figure it out.
That's great advice. Even that little tidbit I would have appreciated 15 years ago. So when you
really love that concept of parallel planning and not plan B, because plan B plan B feels like an inherent failure, right?
Yeah, it does.
So J.O., when you go into these places, like, do you see a structure that can help the student athlete?
What do you mean by a structure?
Like, do you when you go into these places, do they have sports psychologists? Do they have, like, I remember we had the Fetzer Center. So like that was for academics, but like, do you see that they are the foundation and everything is strong, that these student athletes are? I don't remember anyone coming up to me and be like, dude, are you okay? Like, are you sure? Father Mike did that, like not in a spiritual way, just in like a, hey man, I heard you got yelled at. Like, are you good? Like, we never asked each other, like, are you okay? Like when you got cursed out, like we just were like, hey, it's just kind of par for the course. But do you think that universities now have somebody that is there? It could be anybody.
So just take our alma mater, right? Wisconsin. And you're right. When we finished up 15 years ago, we had academic support, right? We had strength and conditioning. We had, doctors and stuff. And that was it. I remember, you remember this? One time we tried to do like sort of life skills and athlete development. They implemented something called the huddle during camp, where we were supposed to meet with our position coach and talk about what's going on in our life. So the guy who just finished cussing me out, now I'm supposed to meet with him and open up. But it was a try. And so now you fast forward, here we are 15 years later. Wisconsin alone has 6 or 7 people dedicated to the life skill development and personal development and growth and career development of student athletes. So to answer your question, it's come a long way. Most Power 5 schools have at least a few people. Some places have over 10. Some will focus on career development, some personal development, some sports psychologists. So yes, man, it has come a long way, and it's only getting better. So yeah.
I love to hear that, because I mean, I really think that, like, once again, not saying anything bad about Wisconsin, but it's a business. I think that's something you student athletes need to realize is, Wisconsin loves you, but the second you're gone, they still love you, but you're not doing anything for them.
Right.
And, so it becomes, I think we always joked, what have you done for me today? Yep. And that's kind of like, there was a joke, but it was behind the joke. It had a lot of, I don't know, like it meant something too. Yeah. Like, if you keep not doing something for me today, you're just not going to be here.
Yep.
Dude, I just know that I had a tough time. So, and I'm a positive guy. So if I'm this way, imagine guys who aren't as, let's say, mentally tough or whatever. What you're doing must be like so gratifying to help these kids who really are going to struggle. Like, everyone's going to struggle. It's just a fact. Mm-hmm. I just think it's so special. So you wrote a book that my wife helped on.
Yep.
Which I think is so cool. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, man. It's called Game's Over, Life's Not: The Athlete's Guide for Transitioning. So, again, what was happening for a few years, I was, going to different universities and meeting teams and stuff. And there's only so much you can cover, right, in a couple hours, or when you're at a university for a day. And so I was constantly being asked, like, man, do you have a book? Like, it's some additional resources. And so back in 2017, I want to say, I started working on a book and finished it in 2018. And your wife was so kind enough she was like the master editor. So once I finished, and I never wrote a book, never even really had aspirations of writing a book. And so I'm like, okay, I'm finished, now what? And I saw Google, like, what do I do now that I finished the book? And I don't even know how. I think I might have put it out there, like, does anybody edit books and know anybody? And she reached out like, yeah, actually, this is got a lot of experience with it, and I sent it to her, and she helped me out. I had all kind of grammatical errors and stuff, and she pointed them out. And yeah, but the whole book is, again, another resource to help athletes who are close to that space, or maybe not even close. If you want to start preparing for that space well in advance, or if you're in that space now, this is a resource to help.
Dude, I feel like it would make sense for kids to, not kids, I keep saying kids, but student athletes, these guys are men or women that are bigger, stronger, faster than like the regular human. But I feel like it makes sense for them to start early, right? To have the parallel. Well, I love that, I guess, metaphor or whatever that is, but I feel like that should be taught. Like there should be a class that you have to take when you go, for all freshmen, all new people to the team. Like I feel like that would help. Financial, it just blows my mind. And I'm sure you've seen it more than I do, is how people can really not do the right thing with your money. Like they just give it away to people. I don't know, that it scares me because
it's so two things. One, you're absolutely right. So I think the one thing that I've learned from working in this space the last 8 years is that the earlier the intervention and support, the better. And so our goal is to provide services and programming from youth all the way to retired athletes. And so we received a grant last year to start some high school programming, where the same stuff we're doing in the college and professional space we now provide for Detroit public schools. And so, but eventually we want to get down to the youth level, because bro, this youth sports now is a beast, right? Yeah. And so if we can start to develop the whole person, starting from 8, 9 years old, like they'll be better off for the duration of their athletic career and even after. So then the other thing is, you had just mentioned something else. You talked about early intervention, and what was that thing you just
the financials.
Yeah, man. So it's crazy. So that's part of it. The other part of it, and I always promised myself I would never be a statistic, right? Like, and granted, I wasn't like a first rounder. I didn't make millions and millions of dollars, but it was enough money where I should have been. It was a good foundation to get started in life.
Sure.
And I remember I said I'd never be a statistic if I ever was a professional athlete. And I remember less than a year after being out of the NFL, calling the NFL, like, please, can I get the money I put away in my 401k? Because I was dead broke.
Wow.
Right? I'm sitting in a house I can't afford, car I can't afford. And it wasn't that I wasted money. It was that I did not understand basic financial, personal finance, right? I didn't understand. I had no monthly budget. And so for some reason it didn't click that, okay, you're not playing anymore, so you need to drastically change your expenses, right? That never clicked. And it's just a matter of time before money runs out. So I think that happens a lot of time too, in addition to, frivolous spending.
Well, and what you were also saying is you never think it's going to end. You think it's going to end, but in 20 years, like I still think sometimes I'm still playing the game, but
do you ever have dreams? Do you ever have dreams sometimes?
Dude, all the time. But my dreams are all about being late to like, dude, you could do a study on my dreams. My dreams are about, I can't find my pads, so I'm going to be late to practice, the game, whatever. I get lost, so I can't find my way to like the weight room or the field. Dude, I wake up and I am like almost crying how hard that is, because it's just so frustrating in my brain. Like, dude, you can't be late. Like Alvy, JD, like there's no exception. Like you can't do this, and that's all I dream about, dude.
Like at least once a month, would you say?
Dude, at least once a month. I was telling people this is a long time ago, and Allie can hear this. Doesn't matter. I probably have like 2 sex dreams a year, and like 25, I can't find my freaking locker, dude. The last one I had a locker on a golf course. I don't know why, and I couldn't find my helmet. And I'm looking around this golf course. My locker's literally in the middle of the golf course. Yeah. And I'm looking around, I can't find it. And then I woke up like freaking out. So I don't know what,
some studies could be done, man.
Dude, it's really terrible. But I get, I think I was lucky in that the fact that I made like almost zero money in the NFL. I drove up in my talk about Michigan State though. I drove up in my Outback that I've had for 10 years. Some piece of crap. Dude, remember Charles Rogers, who was on Michigan State? He had a different car every day. And I just remember going, that guy, I just remember in my head, like, this is not sustainable. Like, you cannot have a Hummer and this beautiful Mercedes. And I'm like, man, I know this guy made a lot of money, but like, eventually you don't have it. Like, eventually you stop getting a paycheck.
Yep.
Man, that's crazy. Jo, wait, my favorite, I want to know your favorite catch. And I have one, because I know we're way over and everyone has to go. Dude, your favorite catch in college. And then I'll tell you mine of yours.
I think, favorite, I think it was Ohio State, at Ohio State.
That's my favorite one.
It was a corner route.
Yep.
Yeah.
You dove for it.
In the red zone. Yeah.
Yep. Dude, I watched that game and I'm like, wait, guys, wait for it. And it was the coolest catch, man. You laid out, you have long arms, like you just kind of grabbed it. Oh man, that was so cool. And we won that game, but we were playing so bad up until that point though.
Yeah, we were. You know what, man? It's so cool. Like when you think our time there, like we beat Ohio State more. I think they only beat us once, right?
They beat us. Did we play them in 02?
02. Yeah.
They beat us in 02. We won in 03 and 04, and we didn't play them in 05.
Yeah. So 2-1 against Ohio State.
Yo, dude, how weird is this? We played them home 2 years in a row. 02 and crazy. 03, we played them at home. But sometimes I watch our film and like somebody sent me all the videos and I watched all the film and I picked up on that. I was like, wait, this is the only time we've ever played back-to-back at the same place.
Yeah, that is crazy. But you know what? Even when we were Redshirt, if you want to count that, we beat them that year too at Ohio State.
At Ohio State, yeah.
So really 3-1.
Yeah, right? I mean, yeah. I was just cheering on my couch or something, but yeah.
Right.
But I guess we're on the team. That's true.
We were.
Listen, I'll take it. I think we're still
scout team look. We gave them a good scout team.
I think we're still 0-4 against Iowa though, or 0-5.
And I don't know why, man. Like I don't know. We could do a whole show on that.
Dude, that
show on that, man.
Listen, I don't have nightmares about that. And like people like, who do you hate the most? I'm like, pretty much Michigan, but Iowa's right there because we couldn't beat them.
Yeah. And I don't know why. Like, I really feel like, sometimes you say, man, the better team didn't win today. Like, most of the time, we were the better team. Like, I don't know what it was, man. Like,
in 02, do you remember they had Dallas Clark?
No.
Dude, they had Dallas Clark, and he was unstoppable. Who was the quarterback? It doesn't even matter. They just had Dallas Clark. He went, remember, he was played for the Colts for like 10 years. Yeah. Dude, I just remember this guy being unstoppable.
Yeah, it was Brad Banks was the quarterback.
Brad Banks?
Yeah, Brad Banks. Who was runner up for the Heisman.
Yeah, number 7.
You know why? Do you know who he threw to?
Dallas Clark.
I'm sure he had other guys, but
no, Dallas Clark was the second leading receiver on that team. Maurice Brown was the other guy.
Wow.
Let's not go down. We're having such a positive conversation. Let's not take it there. Right. Oh, Jay, well, dude, I think we could talk for another 10 hours, but I really appreciate you coming on. I think what you're doing is so cool. I would love to hear what happens in the high school level.
Yeah,
that's really interesting to me as well. I'm thrilled that this is coming, like mental health and the transition out of sports, because once again, you had it happen to you. There was no, I think I sat in a rookie symposium with the Lions that said, what are half of you guys going to do when you get cut? And I was like, join the military. And they're like, yep, because you need a team. So it's like, join the military. They're like, should you buy a car? No, why not? Because it depreciates the second you leave the lot. But these are, thanks for helping me with these things, but you're not making me a better individual. You're not like having me inwardly think of what I should be doing as like the next potential. What's my life plan? Like, what's my parallel? Am I doing anything to make it better? So I love that that's something that you're focusing on. I only think it's for the better.
And thank you guys.
Do you do any military transition stuff?
So we actually,
now that we had Veterans Day,
yeah, man, yeah. So we actually the Marine Corps sponsors some of our transition stuff in the college space. So we got a partnership with the United States Marine Corps. This fall we partnered for 12 universities, and then we're going to do 30 in 2022. And so yeah, it was just a natural fit, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, man, we understand you're doing this work. We think a lot of student athletes have become great Marines officers. They're like, how about we sponsor your work? And then it gives us opportunity to share our message and build relationships with athletic departments. And so it's been a great partnership so far. Dude,
I love the way the passion and like your just like excitement around this is just awesome. It really is.
Man, I've done some things since I've been on football that, I've be quite honest, I've chased some checks and taken jobs for purpose because it paid good, and I was again unfulfilled, man, and I really feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's one of those things where it's not work, right? I have, right? I've had to do it for free, and and I didn't mind it, right? So it's cool when you're doing something that you love, and you get to make a living out of it. Kobe Bryant, I'll share this real quick. This is something I share with student athletes often. So I love Kobe Bryant, right? Huge fan. And I'm sorry, are we too over?
No, we're good.
Y'all can edit it out.
We're just okay. We just want to make sure you're okay.
We just want to make sure you're good.
Yeah. So Kobe Bryant, huge fan of Kobe, right? His whole career. And I remember when he went into NBA, I think I was like 12 or something, followed his career and all of that. But I was more impressed with Kobe after the NBA. And I followed it closely because I work in this space, but it was very rare for somebody that achieved what he achieved to find such fulfillment, right, in life after sports. And I was just fascinated by it. Don't get me wrong, a lot of guys and women who retire at that elite level, they get in all kind of business ventures and stuff, but a lot don't find that fulfillment. And so I remember just thinking about it, like, man, this is so odd. And then I saw an interview. Kobe was on First Take, and Stephen A. Smith, he said, this was probably about a year before he passed. He said, Kobe, I don't understand you, man. He said, you don't seem to miss the game of basketball. He said, when's the last time you played? And Kobe said, when I scored 60. And my last game, he was like, don't get me wrong, I shoot around with my kids, but he was like, I don't miss it. And then Stephen A. Smith, he's all extra, like, I don't get it, Kobe. What's your stick, man? And so he looks at Kobe. He said, I don't get it. Like why? And then this is so profound, man. Kobe said, I made it a point to figure out what else I'm passionate about just as much as basketball while I was still playing. He said, I tell and figure out what else I'm good at. He said, I tell young guys today, he said, if you wait until you're done to figure it out, then it's late. And you can still figure it out, but he was like, it's late. He was like so in essence, what he's saying is I'm fulfilled now because while I was still playing, I realized like what else I was put on this earth to do outside of basketball. And he took the time. And Kobe, it's no way you could tell me that Kobe was spending as much time on his storytelling and animation and stuff while he was playing. No, Kobe was all in, but he dedicated some mental space, some effort into figuring out, okay, it's something here. Let me explore why this fulfills me so much. And so once he was done, he just changed lanes and was able to freaking get an Oscar, right? And all the other success he was having. So yeah. But that's how I feel now, man. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's fulfilling work. So
that's beautiful. So where can people find the work that you do? Where can people find Athlete Transition Services?
Yeah, man. ATScorp.org. That is our website. And then I think I like social media and stuff. ATS.corp. I think it is ATS.corp. That's our social media handles. And then my personal social media stuff is I am _Jonathan Orr. @Iam_Jonathan Lawrence. So I'm always trying to share things to encourage athletes, along their journey and help with their growth and development. So, and the book is on Amazon too. Book is Games Over Life's Not. It's on Amazon as well as our website.
And we'll link to those in the show notes for sure.
Please.
So
Appreciate it.
Yep, please do.
JL, it is great to see you, man. I'm pumped for the next game when we're together.
I'm pumped too, man. Man, it's always a pleasure, man. Always. And man, some of my fondest memories in life, are from our days at UW. And I always remember, Matt, you on the field, you were a freaking animal, a beast, and would freaking tear people apart. Off the field, always had the biggest smile, man, and just a guy who loved people and loved having fun, man. And it's good to see that hasn't changed.
I really appreciate that. You make my day more than my wife does.
and please tell your lovely wife I said hello. And
I will. I won't tell her that part, but I'll tell you. Yeah. I'm kidding. I joke, but my wife is the best. You knew in college. She's the best. Yep. So I couldn't be happier. She gave me a beautiful daughter. Jay, you have 3 kids now?
Yeah, man. 12, 10, and 8. How old is your daughter?
6.5 months. Yeah.
Wow.
Almost 7 months in 3 days. It's nuts, dude.
Is she crawling or close to?
Close. We do some push-ups. We haven't done the dynamic lap yet, but we're trying. I'm kidding. She just kind of lays around and eats everything except for her food, which is bizarre. But
congratulations, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Just like her father.
Man, it's a fun ride. It really is. It really is. I love seeing your social media stuff. I'm like, oh man, J.O.'s just killing it.
Oh man, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us. Matty P, anything? You guys want to talk Nashville?
Nah, man. I'm gonna sign off here with an on Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Okay. On Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
All right.
Love you guys.
We'll talk Nashville next time.